Another concept that we have to talk about as we talk about the natural history or the evolutionary history of the world is climatological changes and geographical separation caused by continental drift. This is going to cause the evolution of life, because remember, it's crucial for life to actually evolve into separately, to have physical separation taking place and to have different environments after being physically separated. But because the continents have drifted throughout the history, animals that used to live in one large landmass become separated, and then those populations become exposed to different conditions. Because as the continents drift to different areas of the world, their position is changing, and therefore their exposure to sunlight is going to change. They're going to go to different latitudes, and then the heat distribution patterns, there are things like sea currents and wind currents, will also change. So this means that the climate, the environment of different continents will be different. And so species that used to exist across different continents, back, for example, when Pangaea used to be a supercontinent, as they become separated, they actually evolve separately from each other, and you end up getting this speciation events taking place. This also causes changes in ocean basins, which leads to sea level rises, and which also cause mass extinctions in the history of the Earth, because changes in the sea level will also cause many animals to be displaced or to die because their habitats are destroyed. Also, because of this, constantly you're going to get shifts into land bridges and isolation, and then therefore the geographical distribution of animals will change throughout time because of continental drift. For example, look at the Bering Sea Bridge. It has opened and closed throughout the history of the Earth, throughout ice ages and warm ages, and as the continents have drifted more and more, it created a bridge that bridged continent of Asia to the North America, and then allow animals, including humans, to have spread from one continent to the other. So all of these things will lead to changes in populations because of repetitive isolations, and then gene flow, and then changes in climate, and then changes in sea level rises, and things like that. So changes in continental drift, changes in geology, and deformations of the crust are responsible for isolation and then reintegration of populations, leading to evolutionary events that we talked about when we talk about macroevolution or speciation. So it's definitely important to talk about those things when we talk about the evolution of life. Likewise, the ages of climates throughout the Earth are also responsible for speciation events, because as the climate has changed throughout the history of the Earth, we've been through several periods of warming and cooling, and so the Earth had ice ages and warm ages, and you had glaciers forming and glaciers going away. You had the sea level rising and the sea level dropping. All of these changes also put pressure on animals, leading to forcing them to evolve over long periods of time. And so generations of species had to adapt to changes in the ecosystem, and if they could not adapt to the changes in the global ecosystem, they actually went extinct. That leads us to other things that also led to the evolution of species throughout the history of the Earth, which are a series of disasters. Disasters constantly put pressure, or this is the idea of catastrophism. A lot of things happen on the Earth that can cause pressure on animals. For example, the spread of diseases has often been the case that led to mass extinctions because animals could not cope with the spread of a disease that eradicated many kinds of organisms. Volcanic eruptions are constantly involved in the extinction of organisms because they block the sunlight and cause a decrease in productivity, which leads cascade effects in the food web that leads to the mass extinctions of many organisms, including the permanent extinction. We think it was tied in with things like that. Climatological changes that we just talked about. Sea level changes, we talked about that. Gas level changes, because the plate tectonics sometimes opens pockets of gas which were trapped underneath the Earth and exposes chemicals to the atmosphere, which then changes the composition of the atmosphere and sometimes leads to animals not being able to cope with those changes. Things like global warming and then ice ages. All of these things put pressure on animals. Landslides, earthquakes, weather storms are catastrophes which can put pressure on animals and cause populations to go extinct, and other populations that had what it took to survive those massive disasters to evolve and change into becoming the new ones to take over the Earth. And we'll talk about in the next video when we talk about mass extinctions and evolution, and how mass extinctions open up niches and create more diversity in life, or at least change the level of diversity in life. And I'll see you in the next video to talk about that.